like to make a few comments for the benefit of members. Before speaking, please do wait until I recognize you by name. Also, please do bear in mind that this room is equipped with a powerful audio system. Feedback events can occur. These can be extremely harmful to interpreters and obviously cause serious injuries. The most common cause of sound feedback is an earpiece worn too close to a microphone. With regards to a speaking list, thanks to the clerk, we will do our best to maintain a consolidated order of speaking for all members. Allow me to start off by welcoming Mr. Fast back to the committee. Great to have you back, sir. Also, Mr. Steinley today. So we're very grateful to hear from witnesses. I did have a chance to speak to all the members. As I understood it, there was unanimous agreement for us to go till 6:15 for the testimony from our distinguished witnesses, and then last 15 minutes will be devoted to committee business. Is that okay with everyone? Thank you. So now, pursuant to Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Wednesday, September 21st, 2022, the committee will resume its study of security at the borders between Azerbaijan and Armenia. I'd now like to welcome our witnesses. We're very grateful to have from the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development, two witnesses today. Mr. Robert Sinclair, who is the Senior Arctic Official and Director General of the Arctic, Eurasian, and European Affairs. And we also have Mr. Andreas Weikert, who's the Director of Eastern Europe and Eurasia. As I understand, you have one opening statement. Is that correct? Okay. So for opening statement, you have 5 minutes, after which we will follow up with questions from the members. Mr. Sinclair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair.
For the opportunity to meet with the committee today, and as you noted, I'm joined by Andreas Weikert. I thought I'd begin with a quick recap of key events of the past several months. To recall, on September 19th, 2023, after a 10-month blockade, Azerbaijan launched a military operation against self-armed militias in the Nagorno-Karabakh region. On September 20th, Nagorno-Karabakh's de facto authorities announced their acceptance of a ceasefire proposed by Russian peacekeepers based on Azerbaijan's maximalist goals. Une exode massif vers l'Arménie est suivi.
What followed was a mass exodus into Armenia of over 100,000 ethnic Armenians who feared to remain in Nagorno-Karabakh after the conflict of the preceding 30 years and the deprivation and hardship caused by the blockade. The latest updates we have received from the UNHCR indicate that they have registered upwards of 116,000 refugees, effectively the entire population of ethnic Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh, about 2,000, including up 2,000 pregnant women. About 70% of these are staying in Yerevan and in its region.
So the Armenian government has responded in remarkable fashion, with essentially all arrivals being housed with family in government-run shelters or finding their own new accommodation. UN agencies launched an appeal for $97 million US, and Canada has since announced a combined $3.9 million in humanitarian assistance through the ICRC, UNHCR, and other organizations. This includes an additional $1 million of funding allocated to the UNHCR for life-saving assistance such as protection services, shelter, and other non-food items. Le 25 octobre, la ministre Joly a...
On October 25th, Minister Joly officially opened the Canadian Embassy in Yerevan, in addition to being an important symbol of Canada's long-term support and commitment in the region. Our embassy will mean Canada is better positioned to engage with the Armenian government and communities and to contribute meaningfully to international efforts to support democracy, peace, and stability in the region. Canada is also the first non-EU country to join the European Monitoring Mission in Armenia. Furthermore, our ambassador for Women, Peace and Security, WPS, will visit Armenia in March.
Armenian-Azerbaijan relations on October 26th. Prime Minister Pashinyan announced his hopes last year, announced his hopes that a negotiated peace agreement and the establishment of relations with Azerbaijan could be reached within months. On December 7th, Armenia and Azerbaijan issued a joint statement that reconfirmed their intention to establish and deepen bilateral dialogue and announcing confidence-building and goodwill measures, such as a prisoner exchange that eventually took place on December 13th last year. Talks between the two sides have been proceeding since then, though not without their challenges, such as a speech with damaging rhetoric in early January by President Aliyev, and ongoing tension along the border as exemplified by the February 13 killing of at least 4 Armenians. En plus, aujourd'hui et demain, les
In addition, today and tomorrow, we'll see face-to-face talks between foreign ministers in Berlin, mediated by Germany's Foreign Minister, Annalena Baerbock. This follows talks between Prime Minister Pashinyan and President Aliyev at the Munich Security Conference, sponsored by Chancellor Scholz. Armenia's Foreign Minister, Ms. Soyang, will also visit Turkey on the 1st of March to participate in the Antalya Diplomatic Forum. I believe that's also a good sign.
Canada strongly supports these efforts to achieve a comprehensive negotiated peace treaty and continues to promote the principles of non-use of force, territorial integrity of both countries, and self-determination. A peace treaty must also guarantee the right of the displaced population to return to Nagorno-Karabakh, as well as respect for their property and human rights. We will continue to monitor the situation closely, including broader regional developments. And with that, Mr. Chair, Andreas and I are happy to answer any questions you and the committee members may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sinclair. We will start off with MP Abultaif. You have 6 minutes, Mr. Abultaif.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome to our witnesses to the committee. You mentioned, Mr. Sinclair, in your opening statement that there was Canada in monitoring mission with the European Union. There's talks between the two parties in Berlin with the capacity of foreign ministers, which is good signs that things are going, hopefully, into resolution at some point. Is Canada involved on a more capacity or better capacity than on a monitoring capacity with the European Union?
So, yes, while it's too early to announce the particular individual, we have had individuals interviewed to participate in the mission, and we've got one person in the pipeline, so to speak, undergoing the process. So that will definitely give us added insights and increase our credibility, I would say.
So we can describe the role of Canada as a credible role in this whole thing. Yes or no? Okay. To that, would you be able to tell us what the official position of Canada because we know that based on what you're telling us, that Canada is very involved on this, which is good news. But the official position of Canada is not being clear to public. If you'll be able to brief us on that, it would be great.
So our position would be that we strongly support the peace negotiations that are ongoing, and that we look to the two countries to come to a negotiated, long-standing peace accord that reflects the principles that I laid out in my opening statement peaceful resolution, self-determination, territorial integrity.
Are we working? I know we're working with the European Union, which is allies of ours. Do we have to work with other parties on this conflict where we don't agree? And if you'll be able to name some.
We continue to support the efforts of those involved in the peace negotiations. We continue to deliver the consistent messaging that I've just stated of support for the two sides in coming to a long-standing peace agreement. One of the issues, frankly, is both sides in the negotiations have their preferred format or sponsors to mediate. There have been some failed attempts, for instance, in Grenada, for instance, Azerbaijan decided not to participate based on the non-participation of Turkey in those. So we continue to support efforts such as those by Germany currently that bring the two sides together. If the two sides are together and talking, we support that.
Russia is a player in this, a bigger player in this whole conflict, and it's a sanctioned country or regime by us. How is Canada going to navigate those relationships in order to be able to help into the peace process and the negotiation in the meantime to enhance further the assurance of a good resolution at the end of the day? So
in that regard, I'd say, I'd note that on February 23rd, Armenia announced it was suspending its participation in the Russian-led Collective Security Treaty Organization, CSTO. Russia's standing in the region is very much diminished. I don't think I'm telling tales out of school when Armenia was extremely disappointed that the Russian peacekeepers failed to do what Armenia expected them to do, both during the 10-month blockade and during the actual conflict. It's another example, frankly, of Mr. Putin's miscalculations and another own goal for him as a result of his unjustified invasion of Ukraine.
116,000 people, they now in Yerevan and in the region. Based on your personal observation, do you believe that they will come back for these people to where they left in the region, yes or no? And just if you wish to answer on this question will be good.
So, frankly, on that one, there's a lot of fear to overcome. There's decades of hostility and conflict that need to be overcome, and certainly our position, as I noted, is that their right to return needs to be reinforced, and that needs to be a real right that they can exercise without fear, and measures put in place to ensure that property rights and human rights are respected. That will, frankly, be a heavy lift, I think.
Is this item on the table now? You know?
I do not have insight into what is on the table between the two parties, but I would imagine it may be being discussed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We next go to Dr. Fry. As I understand, Dr. Fry was actually in the region. Dr. Fry, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for the briefing. I was just in Yerevan in November, and I saw the reality on the ground of the 100,000 refugees in a region with 2.8 million people, which was difficult for them to do. They were looking for funding and help in housing refugees, in food, in medical supplies, et cetera, et cetera. especially a lot of the women refugees. I also was in Vienna a week ago, where, of course, Armenia and Azerbaijan, being two members of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, were there. And they did what we do in question period. They yelled at each other a little bit, but they weren't angry. They weren't terribly angry. There was no hostility. The heads of DEL and the people who come from the different political parties actually talk to each other. Now, what I understand, following up on what Mr. Abutiev asked you, is yes, the EU is playing a role. You are absolutely right. I heard with no exception from both sides that they did not want Russia involved at all. They were disappointed in Russia. Of course, as you know, Armenia would not like Turkey there. So what we have is the fact that somebody has stepped up to the bar, and it's not Canada, it's Georgia. Georgia is seeking to play a role because Georgia understands what's going on since it's been occupied by Russia, since it's been having all of the same problems within that Caucasus region. And so there is a sense that both sides wouldn't mind Georgia. But what I want to ask you is, what is Georgia's going to be able to do, given that it's not a really major nation? It doesn't have a lot of money, it doesn't have a lot of anything. Would it just be able to make the talks happen because of that trust between both countries and Georgia? Is that a solution we could look to? Is that something we could say, let's encourage us, even as Canada, with that? Because I do know that there's a sense that from one side that the European Union is not impartial. So we have this lack of trust amongst all kinds of people. And is Georgia somebody who could play a role? Can they do heavy lifting? They have credibility at the OSCE EPA. Do you think they could play a role in dealing with some of these issues, including delineation of borders? Because we know that that's a big one.
So I'll maybe give the short answer and turn it to Andreas quickly. But yes, I do believe they could play a role, and we would frankly support any sort of honest broker that can bring the two sides together. But I'll turn to Andreas, who has actually been in the region.
Thank you, Andreas.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, my first assignment with this department was in Tbilisi, where I spent 6 months working on some of these issues. To your question of could Georgia play an honest broker role, absolutely. They're part of the South Caucasus solution. The three countries of the South Caucasus have to get along. The two combatants, let's call them that for the moment, trust Georgia. And I think from the Canadian perspective, we will work with players that can bring the two sides together. So I think that would be
My
key.
question, though, is while there's trust, and while Georgia is trusted by a lot of the members of the Organization for Security and Cooperation, does Georgia have the heft? That's what I'm going to ask. I mean, Germany has heft, Russia has heft. Does Georgia have heft? You would know more about that than I would.
I think they have the heft in the region to get the leaders to sit down and talk. So, yes.
Thank you. What is it that Canada can do, if we can, to help ease the problems with the refugees? And I know that many women are having problems with organizations, with facing violence, with dealing with some of sexual and reproductive health needs, because some of them were actually, maltreated during some of the skirmishes. So is there something we can do to help with that in the region, you think? Should we be able to step up and do that, even if we don't have the heft that Georgia has?
Yes, again, I would answer yes. And I'd point to our embassy reports on these issues regularly. The visit of Ambassador Jackie O'Neill next week or in March will also be an opportunity to further gather information and identify what further steps we can take to support those communities, because obviously it's a priority for Canada.
The imbalance in economic status is great. Armenia doesn't have the money and the economic status that, of course, Azerbaijan has. So there is an imbalance there, and I think that Armenia may need help. I just wanted to ask one more question, and that is a broader question. We tend, when we talk about humanitarian and foreign aid, to look to Africa and Asia and India and what we call, quote unquote, the developing countries. I have been to Europe so often now, meeting with NGOs and on the ground, that I think that we need to talk about them and countries like Armenia and Hungary, etc., as needing humanitarian aid, because there's a great deal of erosion of human rights in those countries. I would like to get an answer on this if you have time.
I would agree with you.
We're almost, we're
Yeah,
over time.
Sorry?
Okay.
We're over 6 minutes, so if you could respond in 20 seconds.
I would point to Minister Jalil's, if I could call it, pragmatic diplomacy speech from a few months ago, where she pointed to the need to reach out to not our usual comfortable partners, and that goes to your point of addressing those questions as well.
Sorry, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Frank. So next we go to Mr. Bergeron. You have 6 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, witnesses, for coming here to clarify us on what is happening there. Talking about clarifications, it's not the first time we are receiving people from Global Affairs to try to understand. One of the first times for me was during the 2020 war. At the time, Global Affairs staff said it was difficult to give us information because there was no one on the ground to provide reports. But for some months now, and I was part of the delegation that participated at the inauguration of the embassy. For some months now, we have an embassy on the ground. Furthermore, the ambassador was in town yesterday. Did he leave before having the opportunity to appear here before us today?
He is, frankly, still in town, and there were discussions about availability, and he was unavailable to meet on one of the possible dates because of a conflict. He was meeting with diaspora groups on one of the possible committee dates. In the end, the decision was taken for us to appear.
Je veux pas qu'on me comprenne mal, je suis très heureux.
I am happy that you're here. Don't misunderstand me, but I would have liked the ambassador to be here since he's in town. It's unfortunate that we can't hear him.
In town, mostly on personal leave.
Cela dit,
I know he attended some official activities yesterday. It's unfortunate he couldn't be here. That being said, Armenia, for some time now, has been asking for military assistance from the West. So far, Canada has refused to provide this military aid on the pretext that Armenia was part of the the security organization with Russia. And since Armenia withdrew, and since so far France is the only Western country that has accepted to provide weapons to Armenia, what now stops Canada from moving forward? I would say that when it comes to the export of controlled goods and technology to Armenia, we do not have a special policy which refuses such exports to Armenia. There's no specific restrictions that exist. That would be a matter of an export permit, and each application is assessed independently. I appreciate your answer, which is different from the one I heard from the minister, which was that since Armenia is part of the Collective Security Treaty, we could not move forward. So I appreciate this new vision when it comes to the possibility of providing weapons to Armenia, which may be a good thing because we once again accepted to sell weapons to Turkey. And we know that in 2020, that is what enabled Azerbaijan to militarily win because we had sold weapons to Turkey, which found itself in Azerbaijan. The Minsk Institute raised a red flag a few days ago, talking about the possibility of a new Azeri attack against the Armenians. Do you have any idea that it's going to be the same? No. In short, no. We have not received any such information. And if I may clarify,
policy, a special policy for export of controlled goods and technology under our export controls regime. That's what I was talking about. There's a broader question that you referred to, so I'll defer to my minister on that broader question.
La question est sur cette.
The question has to do with the broader question because the collective security treaty seems to be a barrier since Armenia has withdrawn or rather has suspended its participation. It's no longer a barrier.
Je dirais que
I would like to come back with that information because it's a suspension. It's not a total withdrawal. And what are the French not seeing as a problem, which we are seeing as a problem when it comes to giving them weapons? I will have to put the same question to France. So we'll ask France then. Do you have information that the cultural and patrimonial heritage or goods of the Nagorno-Karabakh is now being controlled by Azerbaijan?
Cultural property is a concern. UNESCO is involved in that. It's something that we continue to watch closely, and I will turn to Andreas to see if to confirm whether he has seen any specific reporting on that from our mission.
The short answer is there have been some short reports that there's no evidence of destruction of cultural property. But the ability to verify is still limited. So.
5 seconds.
You have 5 seconds left. In your contact with people from UNESCO, what are they telling you about that?
Je m'excuse,
Sorry, I do not understand. With your discussions with UNESCO, what information have you received from them? On our side, on our geographic side, at the department, we do not have any direct contact with UNESCO. So I'll have to come back with that. UNESCO is following up the issue.
I'm afraid we're considerably over. So next we go to MP McPherson. You have 6 minutes.
Democracy unfolds. I want to follow up on some of the questions that my colleague, Mr. Bergeron, was asking with regards to the notice that the government of...
Can you push the other?
Can you hear me? That's better. Sorry. I was just following up on something that Mr. Bergeron had asked with regards to the end of our presumptive denial policy for applications to export or broker Group 2 items to Turkey. Obviously, that was a problematic decision that was made by the government for many people. Certainly, I know in my office, I got an awful lot of correspondence about that issue. Of course, the rumors are that it was very closely related to the inclusion of Sweden in NATO, which we're very happy happened. It does seem, however, that that's a bit of horse trading that may not be in line with our arms trade treaty obligations. And I'm just wondering if you could tell me a little bit about why Canada the government of Canada chose to end its presumptive denial policy for applications to export or broker Group 2 items, and perhaps just go into some of the factors that were considered in making this decision.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So This wasn't a decision that was taken overnight. Since 2021, Canada and Turkey have been engaged in a regular dialogue on export controls with a view to building confidence and greater cooperation. And as a result of that 3-year-long dialogue and of commitments received from Turkey, Canada decided to revert to the long-standing practice of reviewing export permit applications for Group 2 exports on a case-by-case basis, including for military items. So every export application is reviewed.
So there was no correlation between Sweden's ascension to NATO and Canada's decision to this decision by Canada, the government of Canada.
That trade amongst NATO allies was definitely part of the discussions.
To be fair, though, I asked about the ascension of Sweden to NATO.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Sorry.
I'm getting there. The decision was consistent with our commitments made in the communique of the NATO summit in Vilnius to reduce and eliminate obstacles to defense trade and investment. And we're also clear, however, that we wanted Turkey to ratify Sweden's ratification. So resolving both these issues, I would say, strengthens the alliance.
It's an interesting answer. So does the government of Canada have any concerns that Canadian goods that are subject to export controls and exported to Turkey could be re-exported to Azerbaijan? And can you give your rationale for that, please?
So,
also, there's bells, sir.
So, as part of the conditions for export permits to Turkey, there needs to be an end-use statement that the goods will not be re-exported outside of any NATO allies other than Ukraine. And there's always the option to reimpose the blanket the blanket pause, if you will, on exports.
So you're quite comfortable then that will suffice?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask one other quick question if I can finish my 6 minutes. Is that all right? And then we can go from there. So on November 17th, the International Court of Justice issued an interim order that called on Azerbaijan to ensure that those who left Nagorno-Karabakh after the 19th of September and want to return are, quote, able to do so in a safe and unimpeded and expeditious manner, end quote. It also called on the Azerbaijani government to ensure that those who, quote, wish to stay are free from the use of force or intimidation that may cause them to flee, end quote. To what extent, if at all, is the Azerbaijan government complying with the ICJ's Court of Justice interim order? And does the government of Canada support the ICJ recommendations in this particular case? Because, of course, we've seen in other cases where they have not.
We're a rule of law nation, and the ICJ interim order, I think, has much merit to it. In terms of what is happening on the ground, I would note that in the military operation, the Azeri military was, as we understand it, careful to extent it could be not to inflict collateral damage. In terms of creating the conditions to return, that's going to be a long-term process. As I noted, we've got decades of fear on both sides to overcome, so it's definitely something that we will continue to watch closely.
Thank you. And I would just...
Oh.
I'm done. Thank you.
So we now have 27 minutes before a vote. Is it the opinion of the members that we should adjourn, or whether is there? unanimous support for that, to adjourn the meeting? No, just continue. Continue on, have one more round of maybe 3 minutes per party. Is that good?
We'd have a little more time than that, wouldn't we? Yeah, 5.
Well, unless we did 3 minutes for your party, the Liberals, then a minute and a half and a minute and a half for, and that would give us 15. That would give us 15 minutes before voting takes place.
Unless someone wants to go back in the house, I think we could do 5-5-2-2.
What's that? 5522? Yeah.
2.5, 2.5.
So 4-4-2-2 then.
Sure, let's do it. Instead of arguing,
Five,
let's
two and a half, two and a half.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
4-4-2-2.
We agree.
Go. Yeah.
Okay. 5-5-2-2. So we next go to Mr. Epp, I believe, or Mr. Fast. Mr. Fast, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you to our officials for appearing before us today. The most recent conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh started September 19th, and on that same day, Canada issued a statement where it basically called on the Azerbaijanis to refrain from any actions or activities that would be a risk to the safety of the civilian population, and also in good faith work to restore humanitarian access to the region. However, 6 days after that relatively benign statement, Canada's ambassador and permanent representative to the United Nations actually described the situation in Nagorno-Karabakh as, quote, a complete failure of global diplomacy in the face of ethnic cleansing. So the term ethnic cleansing was used by our official representative to the United Nations. Is it Canada's position that ethnic cleansing has taken place or is taking place in the region, or both?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So ethnic cleansing is a term that has been used frequently in the context of this conflict. It is not, however, recognized as an independent crime under international law. It may constitute an element of a crime falling under ICC jurisdiction, and I would note Armenia has just signed on to the ICC, such as crimes against humanity or certain war crimes under when the conditions for commission of such crimes are met. So legal determination, frankly, of those things needs to be done by a competent international or national court or tribunal. In the absence of a viable route to determination by an international court or tribunal, an investigation by an independent and impartial investigative body, ideally established by the UN and its associated bodies and agencies, could form the basis of a potential recognition of these crimes. There is no doubt that there were some horrific things that happened, but for a determination at law, we would look to a legal process to make that determination.
So can you tell me, why would our ambassador to the UN use such a highly explosive term at a time when that's probably the last thing you would want is to exacerbate a real explosive situation within the region?
I cannot speak for our ambassador to the UN, but what I can say that there were a lot of concerns of a lot of expressions of deep concern of what was happening at the time, in an effort to ensure that such activity stopped, and I put that statement in that category.
All right. So I draw from your comments that, in fact, it is not Canada's official position that ethnic cleansing is either taking place or has taken place in the region.
Might have taken place.
I didn't hear you even say that it might have. You said that it was up to an official legal determination to actually come to that conclusion.
Sorry, I think, Mr. Chair, I think what I said was that ethnic cleansing may be a constituent part of other legally recognized crimes, and that we would look to a legal process to recognize those crimes per se.
Well, given that our ambassador actually made the statement, I'm assuming he does reflect Canada's policy and position on this. So can we draw from his comments that ethnic cleansing may very well have taken place, at least as part of something larger that would be determined in the future?
I would look to more an independent investigation to make that determination.
Should that not have happened before that statement was made?
Again, I will defer to our ambassador to the UN.
All right. Maybe we'll have him before our committee someday. I'll cede my time to Mr. M.
There's no more time, I'm afraid. Very gracious of you, but there's no time to share.
You've been muted.
So we will now go to MP Oliphant. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to our officials for being here today. I'd like to ask a couple questions about the state of the border skirmishes, which we have read about of late, which would then lead to the state of the peace, negotiated peace that we believe is in place, but do the skirmishes indicate that it is not, or are they rogue elements? And then with respect to the prospects of peace going forward, what is the best role that Canada can play?
Thank you for the question. So in terms of the border skirmishes, the border's obviously a very tense area. I take it as a very good sign that despite the sniper attack on what we understand was a sniper attack by not Armenian forces on the 13th, but militia or type group, and then the shelling that killed the 4 Armenians. The peace talks are ongoing. So I think the two sides are managing that situation and are moving ahead. In terms of what Canada can do, I think it's to the maximum possible to ensure that the conditions for those discussions continue, and that we avoid from inflaming the rhetoric in any way, shape, or form.
You feel that the discussions between the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia are in good faith, and that we may be supportive of that?
I believe that they are in good faith. I also believe that they're incredibly difficult after decades of hostility, and they're very, very tough negotiations, no doubt, going on. We also just had the election in Azerbaijan on, I believe it was the 7th of February, and President Aliyev's very unhelpful comments in early January is exactly the kind of rhetoric that we want to avoid. But I do believe the talks are ongoing. We had President Erdogan just recently also calling on both sides in the last couple of days, calling on both sides to take advantage of this opportunity. That's significant as well. So,
which leads into my next question would be about the role of Turkey in this, and the relationship between Armenia and Turkey, which we read is there are ongoing discussions about normalizing that relationship. Is that helpful? Is that what is your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely helpful. Turkey has very close relations with Azerbaijan, So any indication of a warming of relations with Armenia and Turkey is a good thing, I would say. So, yeah, that's something to watch. Turkey has linked normalization with Armenia to peace discussions between Armenia and Azerbaijan. That will hold off on normalization until Armenia and Azerbaijan come to an agreement, which I would say is, from Turkey's perspective, leaving as many cards in Azerbaijan's hands as possible. But the fact that it's being discussed is a very good sign.
With respect to Canada's role, is it helpful or neutral that Canada has established an embassy with a full-time ambassador in Yerevan fairly recently? Is that proving to be worthwhile or helpful, or just comment on that, as well as perhaps Stéphane Dion's report?
Well, Mr. Chair, I would say it's absolutely helpful. It's a sign of our, not just our political, moral support, but tangible physical support for Armenia and the region, as is Monsieur Dion's report and the things that we have put in place to implement a number of the recommendations from that report. We've still got a ways to go, I would say, but it's that signal of political, moral support and investment that Armenia really appreciates.
Thank you, Mr. Sinclair. We now go to Mr. Bergeron. You have 2.5 minutes, sir.
Merci beaucoup. Je veux d'abord
Thank you. I want to first of all make sure that you will be coming back later with the responses to our questions, for which we do not have any answers, because we are still expecting answers from your colleagues who appeared to clarify us on the situation in Gaza. So I do hope that we could receive your responses within a shorter timeline. When the minister appeared before the committee, she said that the government of Canada did not believe that there had to be restrictions on military exports between NATO allies, a declaration that I found rather strange considering that what had happened in 2020. But let's go on. And she added that she had had conversations, very firm and direct conversations with her counterpart in Turkey concerning Armenia in particular. Can you tell us what guarantees the minister has obtained from Turkey when it comes to the fact that technology and equipment that we would transfer to Turkey will not be once again used in another conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan? Thank you, Chair, for the question. Let me go back to the agreement that we reached with the government of Turkey.
Turkey must inform Canada of any intent to re-export any Canadian military use component, whether standalone or affixed to, integrated into another platform or system, to any non-NATO country. So Ukraine accepted, and that's before the export permit is granted.
So should we trust Turkey this time around? Yes, we trust them.
Frankly, have entered into an agreement if we weren't confident that the agreement would be followed. And I will say, we had a previous question on this. Canada and Turkey continue regular bilateral consultations, and we will continue to review this agreement.
Merci.
Thank you.
Mr. Bergeron, Madam McPherson, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you to the officials for being with us today and sharing this information with us. I think just to end off the session, I'm going to ask a little bit about some of our humanitarian aid that is going to the region. Of course, this committee is the Foreign Affairs Committee, but also the International Development Committee, something that I think sometimes we miss a little bit. We know that the United Nations has launched an appeal for $97 million to support the ethnic Armenian refugees that have fled Nagorno-Karabakh. Do you know if that appeal has been completely funded, and what will Canada's role in that be?
Thank you for the question. The appeal has not been completely funded. Forgive me, I was looking at the figures last night, and I believe there's about 47 million left, but I'll need to get back to you to confirm that. That's a guess at this point, to be frank, but it has not been filled.
And can you tell me what Canada's contribution to that is? What contributions we've made?
So far it's 3.9 million, as I outlined before, and I will just check my notes here. 2.5 of that is to ICRC, $1 million to UNHCR, 350,000 to World Vision Canada, 40,000 to Red Cross and Red Crescent.
And so you said 3.9 million, so a relatively small amount of money so far, but you did use the phrase so far. Is there plans for the Canadian government to increase the amount of humanitarian assistance and development funding that will be going to the region?
I'm not aware of any plans at this point.
Okay, thank you. And that's fine with me. Thank you.
Thank you, MP McPherson. Allow me to take this opportunity to thank our two witnesses. Every single one of us is very grateful to have heard your expertise and your perspective, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you, friends. Before we do leave, a couple of quick things to run by you. First of all, we do. We had agreed to committee business for 15 minutes. I suspect if I told people what the committee business is, I wouldn't be surprised if everyone agrees to it within less than a minute. So the first is with respect to our approach to Africa. The analysts have very graciously agreed to take all of the witnesses. No, there's nothing confidential here. Thank you. So I was mindful of that. Thank you, Mr. Zuberi. But first thing is all of the witnesses were submitted. Thank you to the members. The analysts have kindly offered to take the themes that they had previously provided us and to slot in the witnesses that we have provided so we have a better sense as to how it's shaping up, and to send that back to us by March 18th so we can review that. Is that okay with everyone? Excellent. Thank you very much to the analysts. Second issue, there is a confidential element to it. You will recall we were preparing a statement, and then Mr. Bergeron kindly made some edits and sent them in. We have yet to hear from Madam McPherson regarding her edits, but once they come in, which I understand is going to be by tomorrow, they have them. Can we, for that statement that we wanted to send out, can we send it out to everyone by end of day tomorrow? If everyone can approve it, so we can get it out as soon as possible, that would be. Is that okay? Excellent. And translation. That's correct. I'm just advised that it will, in all likelihood, be Friday morning. But I'd be really, really grateful if everyone could be paying attention to their inboxes so we can get this out by end of day Friday, because it is time sensitive, as you're all well aware. Okay? Thank you very much, and the meeting's adjourned.